I'm just here doing a check over on your Yamaha Rhino, and I just want to go through the service check over items with you, and also we'll talk about the noise that you have in the front end. So let's do that part first. So wander your way up here to the front end, and then after that we'll just work from the front of the bike back. So the noise in your front end is, I would bet my bottom dollar, that worn out wheel bearing, because that one's really wore out there on that wheel. And if I had the tire on it, you'd actually see how badly it was wore out. Anyway, so what happens when they get wore out that bad? The bearings inside, they're pitting up, and they, instead of rolling, they start sort of piling up on top of each other, and then they make crunching noises. So that would be what your noise is that you're hearing. So to start with, on this side, you need a wheel bearing. You also need another tie rod end. You need, well, I can't show you on this wheel. I'll have to show you on the other one because it's the same on both sides. If I take my little pry bar, go underneath your tire, you also see that knuckle moving up a little bit independent of the ball joint. So you also need a ball joint, and the same deal's going on over here, and this one actually is just a little bit worse. So those upper ball joints, the lower ones are okay, but the upper ones should be replaced. Next on this wheel, brake pads. Now your outer pad has a little bit of pad left on it, but the inner one is just about on the metal backer at one part of it. So for sure you need brake pads. The other side isn't worn quite as much, and when I say not quite as much, we're just talking like maybe it's not even a millimeter thicker. So I don't replace them usually just one wheel. You would replace those as a set at the same time. Same issue over here on this side. Upper ball joint. Since I have the wheel on, you might be able to see that wheel moving independent of the knuckle. You can see that by the shaft moving, the CV joint shaft. So that wheel bearing needs to be replaced. Brake pads, upper ball joint, and outer tie rod end. It's a matching set. Next thing that I noted here in the front end with your steering, just as you move the wheel and it's traveling, as you're turning it, it just feels like it's a little bit rough. What I would say is that if I just reach in here, I'll get the little lift up a little bit higher than it should be for myself doing this video, but all I see is there's just a little bit of play up and down, and that could be in that inner ball. There's like an inner socket joint, or it could be the rack shaft that goes through the housing for your rack and pinion steering housing. It could be getting a little bit of play in it. It could be getting a little bit wore. The bearing could be getting a little bit worn. There's a bearing right up in here at the bottom of your yoke, where the steering shaft sort of connects into it. So somewhere there's a little bit of roughness. It could also be, something else I checked is there's quite a bit of play there on the shafts, where your yoke connects to your steering shaft, and the same thing down here. So I can try and just snug those up a little bit. I'm not saying that your steering rack is wore out. I'm just saying it's something that for you to keep in mind, that it feels like it's a little rough, and maybe you notice it when you're driving the bike, and maybe it's something that you never really noticed at all. So anyway, it's just something to keep in mind. Let's see, we'll go to the air filter when we lower the bike back down, and you can see your brake fluid is always a good indication of how much pad wear you have left, and you can see your fluid is actually getting down to the low mark, and that is always tells you that your pads are starting to wear, because you're not actually supposed to top this up as the pads wear. You're supposed to leave it, and that's an indication that of how much pad wear you have. The other part is that your brake fluid, if it's never been changed, considering the year of the bike, I would definitely take the time and change it, because what happens is this gets, and I can tell by the dark color in there. I have a little tester too that tests moisture in brake fluid. Brake fluid will actually absorb moisture over time, and it does that because these caps are actually vented to air. Because when you press on your brake pedal and force fluid down these lines, something has to come in on top to balance that out. Otherwise, you're trying to create a vacuum, and your brakes wouldn't work. And what they do is they use air, and brake fluid is one particular fluid that is susceptible, and what it does is it actually absorbs moisture from the air over time, and that moisture builds up in your brake fluid, and then your fluid isn't as effective as it was long before, and it also leads to internal corrosion of your steel lines and your fittings and all those sorts of things. So that's something that you might want to think about. We can replace that as well. Let's see. Go to the back of the bike. Same issue here with brakes. So you can see that that pad on that left rear wheel, that's almost wore down to the metal backer. It's harder to see the inside one. I don't have the wheel off on the other side. You also have wear in your wheel bearings in the back. It's not quite as bad as the front end, but if you're going to do the front, you might as well do the back at the same time and have them finished. And you also need those brake pads there as well. Next, let's see. Didn't notice any. Sometimes with the Rhinos and the Kawasaki's and different bikes that are set up this way, I didn't notice any play in your knuckle bushings or in here. That might change after I do the wheel bearings, but I'm pretty certain that they're okay, that you don't have any issue with needing bushings or anything like that. Also didn't notice any play on any of the A-arm bushings in the front or in the back either. Next thing, not quite as important. Some people use them, some people don't. Sometimes they just get stuck on a little bit. It's a little hard for me to get the camera in here to show you too much, but the pads on your, see if we can get in here. So you won't see it as much at this angle, but that pad is actually starting to rub on the outer edge. The metal backer of the pad is starting to run on the outer edge of the brake disc. And when we go over to the other side, hopefully you'll be able to see how that angle is. So you can see how that pad, how that's tipped. Sorry about the horrible shots. I do the best I can with my phone. So you can see how that pad's the metal, and you can see where it's blackened. That's actually starting to run on that disc and wear into it. So if that's something that you wanted to have replaced as well, then we can look at changing those pads. They're a little bit harder to do, but we can do that. And I'll also check when I do a cable adjustment to see if this is seizing up, if that's what the issue is, if it's been sticking on. So that's always a possibility as well, and then that would be something else that we'd have to either repair or set aside for now, or whatever you wanted to do. Let's see. Just get my little controller and lower the bike down. I think that was everything I wanted to show you in the lower part of the bike. Just one note for you. Something I didn't check over very well when I was going through the service yet. Your radiator, just when you after you take your bike for a ride, you see how there's all that mud buildup in that cooling radiator. For sure, if you hose this down with a nice steady stream of water, I don't recommend pressure washers, but a nice steady stream of water. It's nice to try and keep that radiator and the oil cooler as clean as you can. Just makes the bike run cooler and makes your engine last longer, along with good oil. Let's see. Check your coolant level in your radiator. It was okay and up to the top, and it tested okay, because I did test the fluid. I'm not sure how long since you had it changed, but it does test okay. So it's tested down to -22 or so it's still in decent shape. The level in your bottle is between the low and high mark, which is all it has to be. It doesn't have to be on the high mark, just between the two. Load tested your battery. Your battery is rated at 230 cold cranking amps, and it's putting out 252. at about 70% charge, so 70% charge. Just something you might want to do when you're not using the bike. Just maybe have a little trickle charger that you can stick on there, and or maintainer, and you can just keep that plugged in, and that makes your battery last a little bit longer. Next, your air filter will need to be replaced. Usually when I open them up and I see a mess like this, I don't try to clean those. Usually they're full of urine and everything else from the mice. So I would just recommend we toss that outer filter covering, because I do believe there's a cage inside that one, and put a new air filter in there, and I'll vacuum out all the fun stuff that is hiding down in here. And that'll probably make your bike work a little bit better too. So besides that, I also checked your front and your rear diff fluids. The front fluid I will change as part of my service time. The cost of the fluid is just a little bit extra. The fluids are both clean, but I'll still change that front one. That way it's all done for you. The rear one, if you wanted me to change that as well, I can do that. The level in that one is down just a little bit, lower than it should be. Not a lot, just it should be up even with the hole, and that's the way I like to see them. So if you want me to I can just top that up, or I can change it. You let me know if you want me to do anything there. If you just want it topped up, it's just included with the service. Let's see. Checked all your lights, made sure your headlights, high and low beam, work okay. Sorry, I'm going fast as I can here to get through this for you. Tail lights are good. Your brake light switch needs to be adjusted. I'll do that. That's part of my service, because I noticed that you have to push the brake pedal goes almost half travel before it, and you're actually applying the brakes pretty hard before you even start to see brake light. And once you have new pads and fluid and all that, and brake fluid and all that sort of thing, and the pedal doesn't have to travel near as far, it's going to be even worse. So I'll make an adjustment for that for you. Instrumentation in the dash all seems to work okay. I didn't see any problems there. I did not test the four-wheel drive. That's something I'll do when I do a test drive at the end of the service after we've done the repair work. I always make sure I go out and test drive the bike and make sure they're working okay. I'll also check and make sure that your cooling fan is turning on and cycling the way it's supposed to at the very end of all the service and repairs. Anyway, if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you wanted to, anything else that you felt that you needed to have checked over, please let me know, and I will put together an estimate for you that includes the service and all the repairs that I noted, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. You have a great day, and I hope you're having a great trip.